Mr. Jose Escamilla is on the line with us. He really doesn't need any introduction. This man is world famous. He's a filmmaker. He's also world renowned and really, really well known for the Roswell rods phenomenon. Jose, my friend, thank you so much for being on this show once again. To be able to have you on is just a pleasure and an honor, and you're one of the good guys, my friend. So thank you so much for being here, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's really good to be back with you guys, man. It's been a while.
It's been a minute, so, yeah. You've been busy too for the last year or two since we last had you on one of the shows.
Yeah, for the most part, I've been working on Roger Lear's new film. It'll be finished out probably in about a month, and it's a really cool project. It's called Gateway Radio Online. He has a website. It's gatewayradioonline.com.
Cool.
That's Gateway, Gateway, and gatewayradioonline.com. And you can see a trailer there of his film that I've been cutting for the last year, actually. We've been doing this since October of last year.
Wow, that must be a long trailer for a year to cut it.
Well, the film was all shot on green screen. And it was filmed at the theater, at the studio where they did the Avatar.
So you're filming Star Wars Episode 7 then?
No.
Yeah, there you go, Star Wars 7.
It's all going to be green screen, that's it.
Pretty much. Well, no, JJ actually he's going a different direction on that, but go ahead.
It's okay. It's been quite a feat getting that one done. Because I had to build the virtual sets, the virtual spacecraft interiors, aliens, animations, all sorts of stuff, man. Which I enjoyed because I'm learning the 3D program at the same time that I can apply to my movies.
Right.
So it was all good work, and we're nearly finishing it up. And it'll be out, and we can have Roger on when the film comes out.
Yep,
that'll be cool.
Yeah,
maybe sooner.
It's funny because I had sent Roger a request to have him on the show a few days ago, actually, like maybe a week ago, and I hadn't heard back from him. And I was like, man, I hope he's doing okay. And then I call you tonight, and you're like, oh, I got Roger Lear. I'm hanging out with him, or we're cutting a movie together. I'm like, are you serious? That is so cool, man. Like, this man hangs out with Dr. Roger Lear. Like, I wish I could hang out with Roger Lear and just casually work on a movie and just be like,
we're all friends.
Pick his brain, Like, that's a genius, man, right there. That's incredibly cool to me. Two cool, man. Two geniuses, just sitting in a room cutting a movie together. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I've known Roger since 1994. I met him at the very first UFO conference, UFO Congress in Mesquite, Nevada, and that's where I met Raj. And we've been friends ever since. We're just really close. Me and him and Jordan Maxwell hang out quite a bit. Jordan was just here a couple of days ago. And, we just hang out, man. We're just regular bros, when it comes down to it, just like you guys,
That's awesome. To have Roger Lear as one of your bros, that's really, really cool. That tops just about anybody on my friends list, let me tell you. I'm going to feel very depressed now for the rest of my night. Now, last time we spoke, you were working on a personal project. How did that come along? It was, of course, the Battle of L.A. You still working on that project? Is that finished?
I've been working on that since 2008.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've been on that project.
I have pretty good news. I was in New Jersey about a month ago, and I met an investor there that's got big pockets, man. He's been funding a couple of other producers' films, and he took an interest in Battle of Los Angeles, so he verbally committed $1.5 million for me to do the film. I just got to get the other side put together, and I have a company out of Canada that did the X-Files. They're coming in with possible distribution deal and matching funds, so it may be that we'll have $3 million to do the Battle of Los Angeles. First class, man.
Nice.
And because I've been doing it out of pocket, and just on the cheap, and you can only do so much, with a computer. And especially me, because I'm not really that great CGI artist. I'm pretty good at making composites and a few things here and there, but man, putting together visuals that are realistic, that's not my forte. So, but now with this $3 million budget, we'll be able to hire a company. I've got some guys that are out of the UK that they are They used to work at ILM and at Rhythm and Hughes, and these guys are fantastic. They said they could do battle for 20,000 a minute.
Wow.
They could create the scenes, and these guys are good. I mean, when you look at some of the stuff on their website, you can go to cinema4dtutorials.net and look at their visual stuff they do, man. They're incredible. You know, so I'm looking forward to working with them. But we're talking about, you know, probably about next year. But we'll finally get the Battle of Los Angeles done, and it'll be done with the justice that it deserves. You know, it's going to have actors in it and some of the key figures that are in ufology today, including Roger. I'm giving him a cameo appearance in there. Jordan will be in it.
Nice.
I'll probably have them play Illuminati or some shit, you know.
That's very fitting for Jordan Maxwell. They play the Illuminati. He should be like the leader of the Illuminati. That'd be very fitting for Jordan.
Well, it's funny in Roger's new film, he plays a cardinal. He's dressed up in a Catholic priest, whatever, Catholic cardinal. It's too funny. But
that's funny. I can see
in as the general or something.
I can actually see Jordan Maxwell dressed as a cardinal. Actually, I can see that.
He's hilarious, man. When you get to know Jordan, he's just too much, man. He's one of my favorite people on the earth, man. One of my favorites. You know.
He does his own radio show too, the Jordan Maxwell Show. You guys should check that out if you're listening in. Really, really good guy, and somebody who's been around for a long time in ufology. Now, you of course got started, really to get known with the whole Roswell rods phenomenon. Have you done any more work into that at all? And then, have you followed up with that phenomenon that you discovered?
Oh man, I've got some fantastic news, and this is breaking. I'm breaking it actually. You're the first radio show. No, I take it back. Second radio show that I'm breaking this news. I'm doing a movie.
Okay.
Called "They Live in the Skies." Okay, They Live in the Skies, and you can see the movie trailer on my YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Jose Escamilla in lowercase. But it's called "They Live in the Skies," and the title comes from Trevor James Constable's first book back in the 1950s that he published about these critters, these things that he was photographing in the skies using infrared film. Now, he's the first person to have filmed UFOs, rods, and huge amoeba-looking things using infrared film, which, films only what's invisible to the naked eye. And it was because of his research and studies that I have applied in all of my research on the rods and other UFOs, because there is an invisibility factor in all that exists among us. And using infrared, we have now rod footage that is incredible. I mean, we have birds shot in infrared. We have insects. We have dragonflies. Those are the three primary things that skeptics and debunkers have said are rods, that they're just insects, birds, and dragonflies. Well, we have a surprise for them. Each creature has its imprint. It has its own footprint, basically, in infrared. They don't change. They look the same all the time. Rods have their own imprint, too. So now we have a comparison of rods, birds, insects, and dragonflies, all in the same area, but they're different. You can tell what a rod is now. And also, we have a gentleman, his name is Wilbur Allen. He's out of Washington, D.C., who's been filming rods using these cameras, the same cameras that NASA uses on the International Space Station to film, the Earth and space. And high resolution. We're talking like 230,000 ISO, which is way up there as far as resolution is concerned. He's been filming rods in below freezing weather over Washington, D.C. I mean, he just filmed some fantastic rod footage the other day before yesterday, and they are in high altitudes, and you can tell that they are pretty far up there, maybe 5,000, 2,000 to 5,000 feet. And this camera setup that he has is just incredible. He's been filming squadrons of rods and other UFOs. I mean, he's been catching a lot of stuff over Washington, D.C. And the guy that's been shooting the infrared stuff, his name is Sean Goodflow. And I think you guys ought to have him on the show, too, him and Wilbur, because they both having a significant impact in the way we film UFOs now and probably in the near future.
Now, are you saying that they're filming with infrared? Are they using some type of a night vision camera, or are they using a FLIR camera?
Sean is using infrared and ultraviolet.
Okay,
films on his camera.
So are you saying FLIR like the thermal? Is anybody using the thermal cameras? Do these rods give off a thermal signature as well as infrared?
I haven't seen any thermal imaging of rods yet, but I'm sure that it's somebody's doing it out there. We do have a rod shot at 200 frames per second using the RED camera. Have you heard of the RED cam?
Oh, that's the Sony RED camera, sure.
Mm-hmm, sure.
RED, and it was shot by a RED Elite camera, and it was 4K, high resolution, man, and super slow motion. This rod flies through the scene. They're shooting a music video. And this rod flies through the scene, and you can see the details, man. It's really incredible, you know.
I can imagine seeing that on. I can imagine seeing that on a RED. Oh my goodness, that should be really clear.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, the guy wanted to sell me the footage for $20,000.
I don't blame him.
That's how fantastic it is. And I go, dude, I just want to license it for my little movie, man. You know, $20,000, I could do 2 movies. Jesus Christ. So,
that's double my budget. What do you mean, $20,000?
I know, man. That's $20,000. I could do wonders with that, man. Jesus Christ. So, so I'm bidding on it. You know, I'll probably wind up paying him, $500 or $1,000. But
that's a big
it's
discount.
okay. You know, it's worth it. It's worth it because the footage is impeccable. I mean, it's clear, man. Then we have one more shot of a rod shot at 2,000 frames per second, 24p, no interlacing, so that eliminates insects altogether.
Right.
And this is with a wingsuit jumper over in the UK. Red Bull is the owner of this footage. And what it is, the wingsuit jumper is falling from a mountain top, and the camera's down here below, and you can see him moving closer as he's free-falling at 140 miles per hour. And he barely moves, man, at 140 miles per hour, and then a rod flies right through faster than anything. I mean, he just zips through real fast. But when you go in frame by frame, you can see the undulations of the membranes of the rod. They go from front to back, from back to front, as it zips through the scene real fast. So that's another good piece of evidence that we have. Then we have some incredible underwater footage taken of rods. They're in squadrons underwater, and you can tell these are not fish. These are rods. And so this film, They Live in the Skies, which I'm honoring Trevor James Constable. He's going to be in it, too. He had a stroke a couple of years ago, but I'm going to have him star in this, too, with us. And I'm naming it in honor of Trevor James Constable because he's the man that discovered that these things live in the skies, basically,
Now, here's a question for you about the rods real quick.
Yeah.
Are they? Do you think they're a solid object, like they're solid creatures, or some kind of a jelly-like creature? Because when they swim in the water, do they make a ripple in the water at all, or is it just they go right through and there's no effect on the water?
Okay, I have footage of them taken by National Geographic, and you can see a white rod in the sky, and then it hits the water, and then it leaves a bubble. It hits, and it doesn't decelerate. It accelerates underwater.
Wow.
It goes faster, and then it leaves bubble trails, sort of like somebody shooting bullets into the water. And this is in the ocean. So, and they seem to be, I don't know, man, some kind of a gelatinous material, possibly.
Like a jelly material,
right? They're resilient, man. They're very strong in context as far as this body is concerned, because, like I said, the ocean, anybody does a belly flop, man, you're going to splatter your guts all over the place,
Yeah.
It's a very dense object that you're going into, the ocean. These things use the ocean just like they use the sky. They just swim right in effortlessly, and they accelerate. They don't slow down or anything. They just zip, and they're swimming underwater. We have various shots of them underwater, and they're swimming just as fast underwater as they do in the sky.
Now, what camera's filming that, though?
That was a 35-millimeter film camera.
Oh, okay. All
24
right.
frames. And the new footage that we have of rods in underwater is by a guy named Eli Martinez, and he's one of these guys that he's a skin diver, and what they do is they rescue sharks. Okay, a lot of sharks get caught in the nets, and they get fisherman hooks in them, and the fishermen just cut the line and leave the shark to suffer with that hook in its mouth. So what these guys do is there's a team of them. I think about 8 people, 8 or 9, and they go on, in the ocean off the coast of Florida, Barbados area, and they go in and remove the hooks from these sharks so they don't suffer. Which is a humane thing to do. But then you're dealing with sharks, man. There's great whites in there and tiger sharks and everything else. But these guys, they were filming, and the guy was using, I believe he was using the GoPro camera. Have you heard of the GoPro? They're like $300 or $400. Film underwater, clean broadcast quality, and he's panning over to the right, following these sharks, and a rod just zips through the scene. And when you go in slow motion, frame by frame, you can see it's a rod. There's no fins on it except for the membrane that is across. And he said he didn't see it when he was filming. He said he only saw it in the editing. And he says, look, I've been in the water. I've seen all types of fish. He says, this is something really different. He says, there's nothing that I've ever seen that is this quick and this fast. And then he says, what's top it off is not only did I catch a real good close-up of this thing, but he says, later on, we're under this big buoy, that's in the ocean there, and they're kind of just hanging there with the sharks, and these rods, there's about 6 of them in a squadron. They just zip through the scene super fast. You don't see them until you see them in frame by frame, and they're about a foot, maybe 2 feet long a piece. So this is more strong evidence that supports, the fact. And plus, the high-speed photography, the high-speed video footage and film footage, that eliminates insects totally, altogether, So
actually, some of the footage that you shot of the base jumpers, so I'm sorry to cut you off, but some of the footage you shot of the base jumpers, to me, I think would eliminate bugs or anything like that, that high up there. I mean, yeah, there could be bugs up there, but the way they maneuver around the base jumpers, I mean, it was just, I thought, impossible.
Well, one of the things that I'm going to have in this movie is footage of the base jumping at the Cave of the Swallows that I didn't release yet. Okay? And you can see the swallows coming out. Every morning about 8:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, millions of swallows come out of this cave, which is like 1,600 feet down, and they come out in a vortex like a tornado. It's amazing just to see the birds coming out. Now, birds eat insects, okay? So the insects disappear when the birds come out, but there's rods flying through the procession of birds coming out of the cave. There's rods, 3-footers, man, flying right through the vortex of birds. Right. Super fast.
That brings me to the question: are they solid or are they jelly-like, or can they move through objects? Is that possible? They can move through objects.
I'm addressing all these questions. Are they interdimensional? Are they alien-made? Are they man-made? Probes. I mean, I've had CIA people, Navy intelligence people tell me that they are probes made by military intelligence, to keep a tab on things. But I don't believe them. These things, they traverse not only the air and the water, but they're also in space. We have footage of them taken by the International Space Station and the shuttle, and these are rods, man, and they're huge, and you can see them coming into Earth, coming out of the Earth, and going into deep space. We also have photographs of them taken on Mars, in the Mars atmosphere. So
that's interesting. I haven't heard that before. Rods on Mars also. So when did that start to become discovered?
This is about 6 or 7 years ago. NASA sent the probes up to Mars, and here's these photos coming back, and there's rods. I mean, clear, and
okay, I got to ask one question then. Do these things qualify as UFOs?
I'm sorry?
I got to ask a question. Do these things qualify as UFOs, or is this in cryptozoology, or both?
I would say they are unidentified flying objects. Whether they're alive or, mechanical is unknown. But they seem to behave like they are a life form, an unidentified flying life form of some kind, because they do have life cycles in the water. They do carry on in the water. And I have footage of one coming out of Long Island, the ocean, about a mile away from where the camera was set up. And you can clearly see it, man. When you zoom in, you can see the water break as this huge rod. It must be about 6 foot, maybe 7 foot long. This huge rod just comes out of the water, and it breaks water. Okay? And this is the ocean, so doggone well this thing was traveling at a high velocity and it had mass. So that's another thing. Is like we don't know what they're made of. And
what are the chances of trying to catch one? I mean, it's impossible, I would think, right? To try to catch one of these things.
Yeah, how do you catch something you can hardly see?
Exactly.
I mean, you can see them with the naked eye. You know, once you know that they exist and you acknowledge it, you'll start seeing them. You know, I had a guy. Oh man, I met this guy in Laughlin, Nevada. You know, a few years back. He said, "Hey man, next time you go to the Cave of the Swallows, I want to go there." He says, "I'm going to bring a rifle with me." He had a M16 or I don't know what kind of rifle he said he had. And I said, "Well, first of all, you're going to catch heck, trying to bring that thing across to Mexico." He says, man, I got contacts. I've done it before." I go, "Oh, okay." I said, "But what are you going to do? I mean, you don't want to shoot at something. How are you going to shoot at something you can barely see? I mean, even if you use a scope, these things are so blinding fast, you're not going to be able to shoot one." And I said, "And plus, you don't want to make one of these angry. If you accidentally do shoot one, you don't know their behavior. You don't know their how it's going to behave. You don't know their temperament, man. I definitely wouldn't want anything super fast like that chasing me down the street, dude.
Now, speaking of which, they are, as you say, they seem to be intelligently controlled, or they can seem to be living creatures. Have you had any that in any way interacted with you, like that acknowledged that you were recording it and somehow and played for the camera a little bit, or played up to visually what you were doing?
I've had a rod fly right by me and my partner Saskia in Santa Monica. We just eating breakfast at a restaurant. We were walking to her car. It was about 9 a.m, and we both saw. This was the first time she'd ever seen a rod with a naked eye. I was used to it, but I saw this rod. We both saw it coming from above the telephone poles, and it came. We were on the sidewalk. It came right down at us and passed right next to her right arm. Okay, she was to my right, and just zipped by. Made no sound. We didn't hear any whiskey noise or anything, man. It was just zipped right by. And she and I looked at each other, and she goes, "Did you see that?" And I said the same thing. And I said, "Congratulations, Saskia. You just saw your first rod, man." And she freaked. She wasn't scared. She was just elated that she got to see a rod with a naked eye.
With a naked eye,
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's when you see something like that, I mean, I've seen them all the time here. I'm here in Mission Hills. I'll be walking the dog and my little pet, and I've seen him fly, above the telephone lines, and I go, "Dang, I wish I had a camera." You always wish you had a camera at the time because they're very random events. But once you see one, the rule of thumb from experience is that there will be more.
Okay, here's a quick question. Now, what are the odds of actually some of the stuff that actually gets splattered on a windshield might be a rod when you're driving down the highway?
Good question.
Well, we had that happen. It was a winter. It was in December, I believe, or November in Denver, Colorado. It was me, James Peters, and Kenneth Swartz and Ty Simpson. We were in the car. We were going to go see the new X-Files pilot, for the new season. And this was in 1990. What year was it? 1998, I believe. Yeah, it was 1998. Yeah, and it was snowing, and this object hit I was in the front seat on the passenger side. This object hit right the windshield. Boom. And it was a dark object, and it slid off the side of the windshield and fell to the ground. We were driving at 30 miles an hour. That's how, blizzardy it was. It was cold. And then I said, "Hey, pull over." He says, "No, man, there's cops back there." And, I said, "All right." So we get over to the nightclub where they're showing the premiere of the new X-Files. And as soon as we get out of the car, we look at the windshield to see if there was any blood and feathers or bat goo. It could have been a bat, And there was no trace of anything ever hitting the windshield. Okay? And he didn't do the windshield wipers either, just to keep that area intact. So what he did is he breathed on it, he breathed on the windshield, and it created a fog on the windshield.
Right.
And then you could see there was a splatter. Okay, but it was water. It was a splatter that was clear as water. There were no feathers, like I said. There was no blood. No eyeballs or anything like that. So it was something. We don't know if it was a rod, but could have been.
It could be a creature that's almost all based on water. Like maybe his whole physiology is based on water.
Well, I was flown into Oregon, to Portland, Oregon. Channel 4 News Department flew me in because they had. This was in 1990. I think this was in 1997. Anyway, they flew me into Portland, Oregon TV station, Channel 4, and I'm trying to get a hold of the cameraman that has the footage. But there was a football game, a local, high school football game, and there was a referee running. There was a guy that was with the TV news filming the touchdown, the final touchdown or whatever, the final play. And the quarterback tossed the ball, the guy catches it, and he's running, and there's a referee running right next to him. Suddenly you see a green rod zip through the scene, and it hits the referee on the side, on his right side. The referee reacts, but keeps on going. The rod turned into water and hit the field. It turned into water or splash, just splashed down.
Huh.
So I'm trying to get my hands on that footage, and it was the first time I've ever seen a rod hit someone. But it was definitely a rod. Yeah, and it was a night shot. It was a rod. It was green, and there were lights on everywhere. So, it was like, football field, man. It hit the referee. He flinched, and then he kept on going, and the rod turned into a water splash. So
we could be dealing with living water beings, like an actual water-based being that is 100% water-based.
Well, it's almost like a jellyfish or something, that
right.
type of gelatinous type of creatures. But man, they had the ability to traverse both the ocean and the sky. Here's another thing too. At the Cave of the Swallows, there was a guy jumping down, and this rod. Okay, terminal velocity. Okay, that's the peak that a human body drops at free fall, right?
Right, yep.
So speed is anywhere from 98 to 140 miles, depending on the weight of the guy. But this base jumper is falling down, and the Fox TV cameras are following him. The whole background of the cave is a motion blur, okay? But he's in clear focus because the camera's focused on him. Suddenly, a white rod flies in from camera left, goes underneath his stomach, makes a U-turn, and then goes back where it comes from. Okay? Now, the key thing about that maneuver is that the rod and the guy are both falling at the same speed in a free fall, falling downward. But the rod has enough velocity to where it is able to fly underneath, still going downward, but flying underneath and makes a U-turn and goes back where it comes from, all in a matter of about 5 frames. And it's in clear focus. The rod is in clear focus. I'm going to have this in the movie, too. And, the maneuverability of these things is incredible. They're just awesome things, whatever they are. How long they've been here, where they come from, we don't know. But they are here.
Now, what do we find out that they're, organisms that are, part of this planet and have always been here and not extraterrestrial whatsoever? We do find new life all the time in the jungle and whatnot. So this could just be some new find. That in itself, though, will be pretty incredible, I think.
Yeah, but he's saying that he's got footage of them on Mars as well, too, and as well as going from our atmosphere out into space.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's it. Well, maybe they could traverse space and go from planet to planet. They could just fly everywhere, from the oceans to the skies to space, and make their way to Mars. Who knows?
And I don't know. I don't know about that one. I can't say they're aliens, because I can't prove that.
Right.
All I can do is say it's an unknown life form of some kind that has these abilities. So the photography from Mars seems to suggest there's rod activity out there. You know, and when you see the photos that I'm going to have in the movie on Mars, you know, NASA took this. I didn't. I had nobody up there filming forensics and stuff, dude. You know, NASA shot this stuff, and there it is. There's a rod, plain as day, same type of rod that we have here on Earth. So I don't make this stuff up. All I do is I present the evidence as it presents itself. You know, and now that we have high-speed photography of these things, that clinches the deal that these are not insects; they are something else that's here.
You know, let me ask you about that because over the years you've received your fair share of criticism from the nasty debunkers, as our good friend Stanton Friedman would call them. Let's talk about that a little bit because you have, like I said, had some criticism about the footage and stuff, and this would definitely be a way to validate your whole case from the very beginning.
Yeah, I'm being vindicated by the rods showing up, getting filmed with high-speed cameras.
Right.
Because that you cannot discount. You cannot dismiss it as an insect when it's, the big thing that the debunkers and the critics have said, well, it's just interlacing of frames, the video artifacts. Okay, well, that's not happening here because this is 24p. These are single frames.
Right.
They're not interlaced. And this is high-speed photography. That means you can stop a bullet in these high speeds. And that's what we have, a rod shot at a high speed that when you play it back in 30 frames per second, it's super slow motion, and it's undeniable. And even in super slow motion, the rod is flying faster than anything in the scene. So
which explains why we don't normally just see them flying around everywhere, and they really could be flying around anywhere. I mean, we could have rods flying around in your room right now. You would never know it. At that speed.
And here's another thing, too. We have footage of them in squadrons.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah. Amazing stuff. This movie
let me ask you, in your research over the years, have you had anybody, like, celebrity-wise come forward saying that they've seen these things also?
I've had a lot of people that, Andrew Dice Clay.
No kidding.
Right? I met him at the Comedy Store. No kidding. I met him at the Comedy Store back in 2002, 2003. And it was just, I was there with one of my girlfriends and an investor and stuff. And, we just went to the Comedy Store just to get a laugh and everything else. And it turns out Andrew was there just, rehearsing some new scenes, some new jokes and stuff. And I had to go up to him. I mean, he was at the back parking lot smoking a cigarette after he got done with the show. And me and Shauna Gilliberti, we went over there. And she was a hot blonde, dude. Shauna's a hot babe. So we went over there, and he goes, hey, I've seen you somewhere, And I go, yeah, I'm the rod man. I'm the guy that discovered the rods. He goes, dude, the rods. And then his sidekick or
okay.
Huh?
A publicist.
His friend. No, it was one of the comedian guys that hangs out with him in his videos and stuff. But
okay.
That exchange where he goes, "You hear? I hear you. You hear? I hear you." It was the guy that says, "I hear you."
Okay.
So they were there and they'd seen rods, man, in New York. Okay, and so I gave Andrew. This is Andrew Dice Clay, guys. I'm a fan. I gave him my card, and he says, Rod, man, I'll stay in touch, man. Call me sometime. He gave me his card, So, that's the first celebrity that's approached me that's seen rods. There was, there's been others, man, It's just, you don't know who knows you in this business. You don't know who has heard of you. I was in Las Vegas this past July, and here's another video you can watch on my YouTube channel. It's called Jose Escamilla versus Monster Quest. Okay, I was in Las Vegas. Are you guys into the UFC, MMA?
Somewhat.
No?
I think Alan's a little bit more into it than I am.
No, you win. Yeah, I'm definitely not. No.
Well, I'm a UFC fan. I enjoy the fights. I've always been into fights. The boxing matches and especially cage fighting. Forget it, man. It's the best. Anyway, I went down there to meet with Joe Rogan because I wanted to be on Joe Rogan's show.
Yeah,
okay.
Good guy.
I tell him about the rod footage that we just allocated. The infrared stuff and then the underwater footage. And I get on there and I they had a question and answer thing, and he said there's about 500 people there gathered, and Joe was talking to people. So he says, "Hey, how you doing, man?" I said, "Hi, my name is Jose Escamilla. I'm a world-renowned filmmaker and UFO investigator." He goes, "Oh, you're the Rods guy." I mean, right there, man. You knew me, okay? And he went into this whole diatribe. He says, "Well, let me explain something." He says, I watch this stuff, and you can watch the video. It'll crack you up, man. He goes into the whole thing about how he saw the rods, and he says, "Man, this is incredible stuff, and out of this world," and blah, blah, blah. He says, "Then I saw Monster Quest, and I found out that rods are nothing but misfilmed insects." And that destroyed me, man, because, he ridiculed me in front of 500 people, and I go, "Man,
You should have
no."
corrected him.
Well, I didn't have a chance because, Joe Rogan was going to say, "I'll tell you what you got to do." And what I was going to say, what you got to do is you got to see the swimmers. He says, "No, I'll tell you what you got to do, Jose, is do mushrooms." I'm a fan of Joe Rogan's. He's the UFC narrator and everything else. He's cool. But I also meet Bruce Buffer, who's the head announcer at all these UFC fights.
Right, yep.
And I said, "Bruce, it's time, for you to take a photo with me." I said, "Hey, man, I do movies about UFOs." He goes, "Man, I believe in that." He says, "I've seen 3. So I go, wow, Bruce Buffer, man. You know who this guy is, right? Bruce Buffer?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, his brother is the guy that says, "Let's get ready to rumble." Well, Bruce Buffer's thing is like, "It's time," Anyway, Bruce is going to possibly do the narration to my Rod's video.
Don't you find it amazing how many people have seen? And we were talking to Jesse Marcel earlier in the first hour, and he shared a couple of stories about how people just come forward now, and they're so much more open to talk about it. But don't you find it amazing how so many more people are just willing to talk about it nowadays compared to like 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Absolutely, man. And I think it's because of YouTube and Google videos and all the video outlets that are out there. Plus, back in the day. And I'm not talking during my era. I mean, I'm talking back in the 40s and 30s, especially the 40s and 50s. Our government, our White House, the Pentagon, they were vicious with people, man. If people reported a UFO or photographed it and then took it to the press, they would get ridiculed, man. They would get harassed. And some people actually got murdered.
Yeah.
They were taken out, okay? That's how bad it was in those days. But now we have, because of the camera technology and YouTube, and there's millions of people now photographing this stuff and filming it, it's very difficult for them to take everyone out. So they're having to deal with it now. Now we have a total different perspective on things. And now we have cameras that I didn't have back in the early 90s. Now we have cameras that shoot high-speed photography, man, high speed, 2 to 5,000 frames per second, and they are cheap enough to where we can purchase them. And I plan to purchase it once I get the budget, for this film. But what's great about it is I know where these things exist, okay? And I know where we can definitely get footage of them. But this time I want to be totally prepared. I want to have a camera array. I want to have a FLIR camera, thermal imaging. I want to have high-speed cameras. I want to have stereo camera setups. And I want to have infrared, ultraviolet. And this way we'll have an array of cameras so that anything that flies through the scene, we'll catch it with these varieties of cameras so that we can verify what we've captured. And,
now, when you say you know where they live, do you know where you can find a mass population of rods just flying around, or you just kind of have gotten good at figuring out when you can catch them and at what time of day and stuff?
Okay, definitely New Mexico. Roswell and Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's an overabundance of rod activity. New Orleans, there's a lot of rod activity there. This is where this guy, Sean Gutro, has been filming squadrons of these things in infrared. Broad daylight infrared. That's invisible. Okay? So there's an invisibility factor to these things.
That's interesting. That's interesting that Roswell plays a part in all this. Of course, Roswell rods, obviously, but we had Jesse Marcel III, the whole Roswell incident. It's interesting how Roswell always plays a part in these kind of phenomenons.
Well, what's amazing is that every president has visited Roswell.
Yeah, that's another amazing thing.
Dick Cheney, Nixon, Reagan, all of these presidents, what are they doing going to Roswell? 45,000 population. It's the armpit of the world. Okay, and what are these presidents doing going there, and where do they go? So in Roswell, there's an underground base, and I know there is because one of my cousins used to work at a gas station there on the base. This was after the base moved, it was no longer a military complex, but they do have foreign pilots training there and everything else. But anyway, to make a long story short, we went down the runway because he used to replace light bulbs on these canopies that are along the tarmac, of the runway, so that planes can land. You got to put the lights in there, Well, he took me to a couple of these canopy light things that he's popped open a cigarette, man, lit a cigarette. He says, "Check this out." He puts the cigarette to the canopy, and there's no light bulb fixture in there. It's just there, and it starts sucking the air, the smoke in. So that tells me that these canopies are vents for something that's underground. I'm a firm believer that Roswell has an underground base, and it's probably connected to all the other underground tunneling systems all over the USA.
Yeah, well, that I was going to say that there's a good possibility that it is connected to a lot of other installations we have underground. I would not be surprised at all or shocked by that, especially if something did crash at Roswell and there is something around that area, the Nevada, Roswell, New Mexico, Arizona area. Look, in those three states, we've had Nevada, right? We have all the testing stuff that happens in Nevada, Arizona, Travis Walton, New Mexico, the Roswell crash. It seems to happen in those three, that region of the country. For some strange reason, there's always been that kind of phenomenal activity in that area. Do you think that maybe the rods somehow got here because of the Roswell crash?
I think the aliens were going fishing for the rods
They
in
were going,
Roswell.
they were going sky fishing. Yuck, yuck,
There you
yuck.
go. That's as good an answer as I've heard on the subject.
No, I'll give you an answer. I don't think so, because we have rock carvings from 1,000 years ago in Argentina,
right,
that depict something that looked like rods. And here's another curious thing. When, the first conference I did for the UFO Congress in Mesquite, Nevada in 1994, there was an archaeologist there that was presenting Aboriginal cave art. He was an archaeologist that was investigating ancient tribes and aliens, because of the cave drawings of UFO-looking things. And, he saw my rods presentation, and I didn't get to hang out to see his presentation, which was a couple hours after mine, because I had my girlfriend and her kid. It was just a pain, But people told me, they said, "Jose, you should have seen this guy's presentation." He showed a slide of Aboriginal cave art from, I think it was like 30,000 years ago, okay? And he says whoever did this Aboriginal wall carving painted stick figures of people, okay? And that must have been the tribe. And there were like 6 or 7 stick figures of people, and their arms were extended. And in the sky were about 4 spears. This is what the archaeologist thought. He says, "I thought these things were spears." He says, "The thing is," he says, "I thought these stick figures were people throwing spears in the sky." Okay? And he said the curious thing about the spears is that they had feathers along both sides of the spear, all the way from the front to the back. Okay? And he said, "I just didn't understand the aerodynamics of a spear with that many feathers. You would think it would hinder it. So he had a spear built, with feathers along, and he tossed it, and it flew okay, but it wasn't that stable. Then he saw my rod stuff, and he says, "Now I know what they were pointing at." He says, "They weren't throwing spears, they were pointing."
We have only a couple more minutes left. Jose, give the audience a rundown real quick of how they can find your work and stuff, and the way they can link up to you, especially your main websites and stuff.
Okay, my main website is, there's 4 letters: T as in Tom, B as in Bob, L as in Larry, N as in Nancy. That's TBLN, and then films, FILMS, TDLNfilms.com. You can go there and see my movies. You can rent them on pay-per-view for $1.99. It all goes to the cause of making movies. This is how I raise money to make my films. And also, you can go to youtube.com/Jose Escamilla, and that's all lowercase in one word. And you can see a lot of my trailers and some other rod stuff up there, and lots of goodies. Very
cool. We're definitely going to have you back on real soon. I'd love talking to you, man. We're all out of time, though. on Skywatchers Radio. We only have a little bit under a minute left. Jose, thank you so much for being here, my friend. And everybody listening in, this is Jose Escamilla. Please check out his website, check out the movie. When it's done, Jose is going to be back, and we'll definitely promote it a lot here. And Dr. Roger Lear, we'll have him on pretty soon also. Can't wait to speak to that gentleman. Jose, my friend, an honor and a pleasure, and it's all mine having you on the show here. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank you, sir. There of his film that I've been cutting for the last year, actually. We've been doing this since October of last year.
Wow, that must be a long trailer for a year to cut it.
Well, the film was all shot on green screen. And it was filmed at the theater, at the studio where they did the Avatar.
So you're filming Star Wars Episode 7 then?
No.
Yeah, there you go. Star Wars 7.
It's all going to be green screen. That's it.
Pretty much. Well, no, JJ actually he's going a different direction on that, but go ahead.
It's okay. It's been quite a feat getting that one done. Because I had to build the virtual sets, the virtual spacecraft interiors, aliens, animations, all sorts of stuff, man, which I enjoyed because, I'm learning the 3D program at the same time that I can apply to my movies.
Right.
So it was all good work, and we're nearly finishing it up, and it'll be out, and we can have Roger on when the film comes out.
Yep.
That'll be cool.
Yeah,
maybe sooner.
It's funny because I had sent Roger a request to have him on the show a few days ago, actually, like maybe a week ago, and I hadn't heard back from him, and I was like, man, I hope he's doing okay. And then I call you tonight, and you're like, oh, I got Roger Lear. I'm hanging out with him. We're cutting a movie together. I'm like, are you serious? That is so cool, man. Like, this man hangs out with a doctor.
Working with him, but we're talking about, probably about next year. But we'll finally get the Battle of Los Angeles done, and it'll be done with the justice that it deserves. It's going to have actors in it and some of the key figures that are in ufology today, including Roger. I'm giving them a cameo appearance in there. Jordan will be in it.
Nice.
I'll probably have them play Illuminati or some shit,
That's very fitting for Jordan Maxwell. They play the Illuminati. He should be like the leader of the Illuminati. That'd be very fitting for Jordan.
Well, it's funny in Roger's new film, he plays a cardinal. He's dressed up in a Catholic priest, whatever Catholic cardinal. It's too funny. But
that's funny. I can see
in as the general or something.
I can actually see Jordan Maxwell dressed as a cardinal. Actually, I can see that.
He's hilarious, man. When you get to know Jordan, he's just too much, man. He's
a
one of
guy.
my favorite people on the earth, man. One of my favorites.
He's a good. He does his own radio show too, the Jordan Maxwell Show. You guys should check that out if you're listening in. Really, really good guy, and somebody who's been around for a long time in ufology. Now, you of course got started, really to get known with the whole Roswell rods phenomenon. Have you done any more work into that at all? And then, have you followed up with that phenomenon that you discovered?
Oh man, I've got some fantastic news, and this is breaking. I'm breaking it actually. He's been funding a couple of other producers' films, and he took an interest in Battle of Los Angeles. So he verbally committed $1.5 million for me to do the film. I just got to get the other side put together, and I have a company out of Canada that did the X-Files. They're coming in with possible distribution deal and matching funds. So it may be that we'll have $3 million to do the Battle of Los Angeles. First class, man.
Nice.
And because I've been doing it out of pocket, and just on the cheap, and you can only do so much, with a computer. And especially me, because I'm not really that great CGI artist. I'm pretty good at making composites and a few things here and there, but man, putting together visuals that are realistic, that's not my forte. So, but now with this $3 million budget, we'll be able to hire a company. I've got some guys that are out of the UK that they used to work at ILM and at Rhythm and Hughes, and these guys are fantastic. They said they could do battle for $20,000 a minute.
Wow.
They could create the scenes, and these guys are good. I mean, when you look at some of the stuff on their website, you can go to cinema4dtutorials.net and look at their visual stuff they do, man. They're incredible. So I'm looking forward to
Mr. Jose Escamilla is on the line with us. He really doesn't need any introduction. This man is world famous. He's a filmmaker. He's also world renowned and really, really well known for the Roswell rods phenomenon. Jose, my friend, thank you so much for being on this show once again. To be able to have you on is just a pleasure and an honor, and you're one of the good guys, my friend. So thank you so much for being here, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's really good to be back with you guys, man. It's been a while.
It's been a minute. So, yeah, you've been busy too for the last year or two since we last had you on one of the shows. Yeah,
for the most part, I've been working on Roger Lear's new film. It'll be finished out probably in about a month, and it's a really cool project. It's called Gateway Radio Online. He has a website. It's gatewayradioonline.com.
Cool.
That's Gateway, Gateway, and gatewayradioonline.com. And you can see a trailer.
To Roger Lear, I wish I could hang out with Roger Lear and just casually work on a movie and just be like,
we're old friends.
Pick his brain, that's a genius, man, right there. That's incredibly cool to me. Two cool, man. Two geniuses, just sitting in a room, cutting a movie together. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I've known Roger since 1994. I met him at the very first UFO conference, UFO Congress in Mesquite, Nevada, and that's where I met Raj. And we've been friends ever since. We're just really close. Me and him and Jordan Maxwell hang out quite a bit. Jordan was just here a couple of days ago, and we just hang out, man. We're just regular bros, when it comes down to it, just like you guys,
That's awesome. To have Roger Lear as one of your bros. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
That tops just about anybody on my friends list. Let me tell you, I'm gonna feel very depressed now for the rest of my night. Now, last time we spoke, you were working on a personal project. How did that come along? It was, of course, the Battle of L.A. You still working on that project? Is that
I've
finished?
I've been working on that since 2008.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've been on that project.
I have pretty good news. I was in New Jersey about a month ago, and I met an investor there that's got big pockets, man.